Hello, everybody. Okay, so you're near the end of the course and you read Camus' The Guest. So I was wondering about your reaction to it. Did it leave you maybe scratching your head? Did you feel cheated out of an ending? Or did you think you missed something and you were just stupid? If you thought all those things, you had a perfectly natural reaction to this work, unless you've studied the philosophy of existentialism. Yes, nice word, isn't it? Existentialism. Camus was an existentialist, so you need to know the bare basics of it, and I'm telling you the bare basics. This is the short version. This is a very complicated philosophy, but we can get enough today that we can get an understanding of it for our purposes. Let's talk about reading for just a second. When we read, maybe we're reading for enjoyment, or maybe we're reading because we have to, as for this class, but I hope you're combining both while you're reading here. But anyway, you've read some fiction, and when we read fiction, we have expectations. We're willing to go along with the author on most things that might seem unrealistic just to get at the meaning of a work. Samuel Taylor Coleridge, you study him in this course, as a matter of fact, a very famous and brilliant poet and essayist. He came up with something pretty fantastic. He writes that when we enter into an author's world, we do something he calls the willing suspension of disbelief. This may sound fancy, but it isn't. You do it all the time with movies, for instance. Avatar. Didn't you actually willingly suspend your sense of disbelief that what was on the screen was not your world, yet you willingly entered the world of Avatar? Think about how many times you do this with entertainment or even with serious study. So with Camus, we have to do what Coleridge says we must do. We have to enter Camus' world and suspend our disbelief. We have to enter the world of existentialism. Now, for the shorter version, the big question is, what is truth? That's a big question. Philosophers have been at that for ages, and of course, they're still arguing over a definition. Existentialism, for our purposes, begins with the philosopher Kierkegaard in the late 18th century. You don't need to worry about that. I just want you to have a starting point. He struggled with trying to define truth, as all philosophers do. He came up with a unique decision. He decided we can't, and we're left with many of the elements here: good, evil, truth, false, right, wrong. Is there any meaning? And finally, what matters without knowing? What matters? Existentialists believe we are in the dire state of having to make decisions, which we can do because we have free will. But those decisions, ultimately, if you've lived a little bit, you know they bring along responsibilities. We have to decide, often not knowing what's good, not knowing what's evil. Uh, we don't know what's true. We have to make a decision. We don't know what's false. And one of the most common, of course, which is right, which is wrong. To Camus, it's like being held in limbo. So how can anything take on meaning? How can anything matter if we don't know the answer to the basic question of what is truth? So you can probably tell so far that this belief system, existentialism, is not one that allows for too much happiness. But that's the way it goes from Camus' point of view, so that's what we're going to work with. Let's take a look at the ending of The Guest and see if applying Camus' philosophy helps us any with getting closure with this story, because I have a feeling it left you hanging a bit. Okay, everything seems to be going along fine until Daru leaves the Arab at the road in the desert alone to end the Arab's walk, only to go on to prison. Why go, you say? All right, where else is he going to go? He can't go back. He knows only the road to the prison. But the greater question is, why does Daru leave him there? Daru seems like a nice enough guy. He was kind to the Arab. He's come this far with him in the desert. Why does he leave him? He leaves him because he has to make a decision, finally, on what to do with the Arab. Daru has free will. He must decide. But then along with that decision comes the responsibility. He leaves the Arab because it doesn't matter what Daru does, what he decides. He cannot know which one of these is right. He can't know which one is wrong because he doesn't know what is the truth. It doesn't matter because what matters without knowing, and he doesn't know between these things what he should do. Remember, when he returns to his schoolroom, we see the same behavior. The message on the board that reads, "You will pay for this," confuses us. Naturally, we expect action. Daru takes no action. He can find no meaning in this message. We don't either. He doesn't know if it's good, evil. Is it true? Is he going to pay? Is it false? Did someone just put it up there to scare him? Is it right? Is it wrong? And just like us, what does it mean? What does it mean? You will pay for this. He can find no meaning at all. He doesn't know any more than we do. So what does he do? He does nothing. This doesn't satisfy us. I'm pretty sure it didn't satisfy you. But I want you to notice the last phrase in the story is, he was alone. Existentialists all believe that we exist in this state of unknowing, and thus we can find no true meanings because we're alone in this state of unknowing. So if we just try to see this, we just try to see this short version here of what Daru is dealing with, maybe the story can make a little bit of sense. Maybe we can see why we can't expect a nice, neat little ending. Now remember, we left our world and we entered Camus' world, existentialism, just like Coleridge says. We have to have a willing suspension of disbelief. If we realize we were in that world, then the ending doesn't matter. That's the point. Most people want answers. Camus has none. Daru is in the desert alone, like the Arab. There is no truth to tell you. There's just unknowing. And most ironically, if we can view the guest from Camus' point of view, it does make sense. So isn't it true? Do you know? This free will is what has been termed a terrifying freedom. Think about that for a minute. Free will is a terrifying meaning. So this is indeed the short version, but I'd like you to try the guest one more time with a little bit of knowledge about existentialism and see if it doesn't, not necessarily make sense, but see if you can see Camus' point of view, why he wrote the story the way he did. So that's it for today. Thanks. Bye. Well, that's the best we can do.